مجھے تیری دادی
اللہ جل یا اللہ جل کے زہرا پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی کے زہرا پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی
زخمی پہلو پہ ہی ایک ہاتھ میرا رہتا تھا ہے زخمی پہلو پہ ہی ایک ہاتھ میرا رہتا تھا دوسرا ہاتھ اٹھا کر میں دعا کرتی تھی اللہ جل یا مہدی
اللہ جل کے زہرا پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی کے زہرا پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی
ہنس رہے تھے سبھی درباری میری غربت پر ہنس رہے تھے سبھی درباری میری غربت پر میں نے تحریر نبی خاک سے یہ کہہ کے چنی
اللہ جل یا اللہ جل کے زہرا پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی کے زہرا پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی
میرے پہلو کی طرح بیٹا شکستہ ہے مزہ ہے میرے پہلو کی طرح بیٹا شکستہ ہے مزہ میرے پہلو کی طرح بیٹا شکستہ ہے مزہ دیکھو 100 سال ہوئے قبر دوبارہ نہ بنی اللہ جل یا مہدی
اللہ جل کے زہرا پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی کے زہرا پکاری اللہ جل یا مہدی
ایک کوچے میں جو ظالم نے تماچا مارا ایک کوچے میں جو ظالم نے تماچا مارا آئے میں روتے ہوئے ہاتھ پہ یہ کہہ کے گری
اللہ جل یا اللہ جل کے زہرا
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Good morning and welcome to Morning Baraka on this chilly Friday morning. It's the 8th of December, 23rd of Jamad al-Awwal, and I'm very excited for today's show because we're discussing a topic close to my heart, and that's recitations. So here's what's coming up. We start the show pledging our allegiance to the awaited Saviour, Imam Mahdi Ajallahu Ta'ala Farajul Sharif, with the dua of allegiance, dua al-ahad. And then joining me in the studio to discuss the history and benefits of Azadari from an Urdu perspective with Ustad Sohail Abbas Chauhan. That's inshallah at 11 o'clock. And we return with the most pressing and important news of the week as provided by our partners at Shia Waves Agency. And that, ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers, is the lineup for today. Dua al-Ahad, the history of Urdu recitations, as well as news of the week returning on this Friday. So inshallah, we look forward to an amazing show. Welcome to the show. It's no secret that Islam, which is the most superior heavenly creed, pursues the establishment of an Islamic government. And it considers the formation and the preservation of the government of truth as one of the highest religious duties. Now, what do I mean? The Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ exerted all of his efforts in establishing an Islamic government and strove to lay its foundation in the city of Medina, as we all know. After his death, despite the inspiration of the infallible Imams ﷺ and the distinguished ulama to continue this Islamic government, the governments that came into being, with the exception of a very few cases, have not been divine. Until the time of the advent of Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, most governments will be based on falsehood. One of the ills which human society will suffer before the advent of the Imam is injustice and tyranny perpetrated by governments against the people. In this regard, here are a few examples of our holy infallibles that have commented on this matter. The Prophet is reported to have said, "The world will be filled with tyranny and injustice, such that there will be fear and war in every house." Imam Ali alayhi salam said, "The world will be filled with tyranny and injustice, such that there will be fear and grief in every house." Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam said, "Hadarat Qa'im will not rise up except at a time full of fear and dread." And Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam further says, "The Mahdi will rise up at a time when the helm of affairs will be in the hands of tyrants." This fear and dread will mostly stem from the rule of despotic and obstinate rulers in the world before the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi Ajjallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. Now, with current technology and social media, we don't have to go far to witness firsthand the atrocities committed by leading Western governments. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this day of Friday to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Savior, Imam al-Mahdi Ajjallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. And we continue the show after Dua al-Ahad. So we'll see you soon.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم رب النور العظيم ورب الكرسي الرفيع ورب البحر المسجور ومنزل التوراة والإنجيل والزبور ورب الظل والحرور ومنزل القرآن العظيم ورب الملائكة المقربين والأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم إني أسألك باسمك الكريم وبنور وجهك المنير وبنور وجهك المنير وملكك القديم يا حي يا قيوم أسألك باسمك الذي أشرقت به السماوات والأرضون وباسمك الذي يصلح به الأولون والآخرون وباسمك الذي يصلح به الأولون والآخرون يا حيان قبل كل حي ويا حيان بعد كل حي ويا حيان حين لا حي يا محيي الموتى ومميت الأحياء يا حي لا إله إلا أنت اللهم بلغ مولانا الإمام الغادي المهدي القائم بأمرك صلوات الله عليه وعلى آبائه الطاهرين عن جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، سهلها وجبلها وبرها وبحرها، وعني وعن والدي من الصلوات زنة عرش الله ومداد كلماته وما أحصاه علمه وأحاط به كتابه. اللهم إني أجدد له في صبيحة يومي هذا وما عشت من أيامي عهدا وعقدا وبيعة له في عنقي لا أحول عنها ولا أزول أبدا. اللهم اجعلني من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمسارعين إليه في قضاء حوائجه والممتثلين لأوامره والمحامين عنه والسابقين إلى إرادته والمستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم إن حال بيني وبينه الموت الذي جعلته على عبادك حتما مقضيا فأخرجني من قبري مؤتزرا كفني شاغرا سيفي مجردا قناتي ملبيا دعوة الداعي في الحاضر والبادي. اللهم أرني الطلعة الرشيدة والغرة الحميدة واكحل ناظري بنظرة مني إليه وعجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه وأوسع منهجه وسلك بي محجته وأنفذ أمره واشدد أزره واعمر اللهم به بلادك وأحيي به عبادك فإنك قلت وقولك الحق. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس فاظهر اللهم لنا وليك وابن بنت نبيك المسمى باسم رسولك صلى الله عليه وآله حتى لا يظفر بشيء من الباطل إلا مزقا ويحق الحق ويحققا واجعله اللهم مفزعا لمظلوم عبادك وناصرا لمن لا يجد له ناصرا غيرك ومجددا لما عطل من أحكام كتابك ومشيدا لما ورد من أعلام دينك وسنن نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله واجعله اللهم ممن حصنته من بأس المعتدين. اللهم وسر نبيك محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله برؤيته ومن تبعه على دعوته وارحم استكانتنا بعده. اللهم اكشف هذه الغمة، اللهم اكشف هذه الغمة عن هذه الأمة بحضوره وعجل لنا ظهوره. إنهم يرونه بعيدا ونراه قريبا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ثم تضرب على فخذك الأيمن بيدك 3 مرات وتقول كل مرة: العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان، العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان، العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Welcome back, dear viewers. You're watching Morning Baraka live on Imam Hussein TV. Now, for those who know me, know that I have a huge passion for recitation. The connection to the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam by use of melody, poetry, tone and pitch has always fascinated me, as I watched from a young age reciters grace the mimbar of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, performing art on these mimbars, drawing out emotions and tears from the believers in their majalis. Of course, personally, I come from an Iraqi background, so I'm somewhat familiar with the Iraqi tradition, but Urdu recitations has always been an interest of mine, since it's amazing to see the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam reach all corners of the earth, all adapting azadari of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to their traditions and cultures. So I'm very, very fortunate to have with me reciter and teacher of Kalam, Marsiya, Nawha in the Urdu tradition, Ustad Suhail Abbas Shohan, with me in the studio. Ustad Suhail, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So in my travels when I was very young, I would often attend majalis which are very Iraqi. And I was actually unaware that there was other cultures in other countries who are from, and this is me being quite frank, like as I grew up, because back in those days we didn't have social media, so we didn't know what was going on in other countries. So it was quite fascinating to me to see other countries love the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So when I was introduced to the Urdu tradition, when I saw it, I'm like, okay, this is very different to the Iraqi style. And I was quite fascinated by it. So tell us, I guess, about firstly your role, the history of your personal journey when it comes to recitation from a younger age and at this age now. A very brief kind of biography.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for inviting me today.
Pleasure.
My journey started just like probably I would say 99.9% of all reciters from the lap of my mother.
Yes.
And my mother, fortunately for me, was a very proficient reciter. Her father...
Same, yeah.
Same?
Yeah, exactly.
Subhanallah. That's it. And so he was a Soz Khan, and we'll come to explanation of what format that of recitation that actually is. So these are very traditional formats, and so obviously the love of the Ahlul Bayt and the love of recitation and the ibadat in this particular format was inculcated by my mother.
Absolutely.
My father had a very, a tremendous fondness for poetry as well, and therefore it was very well read. And then the two merged, and that was it. And
right.
That's my beginning.
Fantastic. So then I'd love to get a bit of an insight into, I guess, the history of Azadari from an Indo-Pak perspective then.
Sure. I mean, with Azadari, the two separate things. I mean, the Azadari element you can trace back to hundreds of years. probably pretty much about a millennium back.
Okay.
I mean, there was the Islamic faith being propagated through Indo-Pak areas, about 1,000 years ago, heavily, and then it became very, very popular and that's where the Qawwali element comes in. That the Qawwali element is Aqwal Masumin, so from the Aqwal comes Qawwali, and so they used to sing and recite the Aqwal Masumin essentially, and of course then this was put into verse. So just going back a little bit about how the recitation sort of comes about, the format of poetry.
Yeah.
You had in the Arabian subcontinent, you had Khayyam, sort of 10th, 11th century.
Yes.
Then you had Rumi after that, and the amalgamation of the two. So the methodology of prose and verse was, I won't say instigated, but made famous by these names such as Khayyam in that format. Of course, his recitations and his writings were all mostly worldly, etc., etc. But then Rumi brought more philosophy into it, and then Sufism, etc., etc. So there was a religious element an influx there.
Yeah.
That was all going on in Arabia, but as it transformed to Indo-Pak, which is my area, it went through Qawwali, etc., etc. But this format that we have...
Sorry, you've mentioned Qawwali. I'm really sorry to say. You mentioned Qawwali a couple of times. What does that mean?
This is very important. Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on this. Now, the thing is that Qawwali is recitation of, qasidas and marsiyas, or extracts of that, but put to music. So they will have a drum. Mainly it's a drum.
Okay.
So now drum is acceptable in Islam.
Yeah.
But then modern day Qawwalis, they do have some other instruments as well.
Yeah.
So back in the days...
But it's all dhikr of the Ahl Bayt?
Yes.
Okay.
Completely, it used to be all the zikr of Ahl Bayt.
Okay.
With that, with the zikr of the Ahl Bayt, as the religion moved forward, and those people who brought the religion to the Hindu culture, such as Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti and so on and so forth, these large names where there are huge mausoleums of commemorating those people now. So those people are also revered and remembered. Now, somewhat, you could say that some people have lost the original message and they are almost worshipping these people. That is a possibility. It appears, although it's not like that, they're paying homage to these people, but where they should be doing the vasta should come from the Ahlul Bayt. Some people are going there. But those people, they are all either from the lineage of the Ahlul Bayt, or they are, believers and followers, mystics and Sufis, and people like that who are, all lovers and followers of the Ahlul Bayt. So, how people have followed, and as it's sort of manifested in over the hundreds of years, that's a bit more complex. But going back to the recitation element, so the Qawwali, when people came and they were doing the Aqwal, the call of the Masumin was told to people. Why in that format? Because you have to understand that India and the Indo-Pak area, which was what is now Bangladesh and India, Pakistan, Tibet was also in that. It's a vast area, and this area, the format was the main predominant religion was Hinduism, and which has a very close link with music, because bhajan is their format of recitation, and it's melodious, etc., etc. And so the Hinduism has a very close link with music. Wow. And therefore, if you're going to appeal to anybody, they're used to thinking about religion not in a lecture from the pulpit. Right. It's more about recitation. It's more about singing.
Because that was the dominant culture at the time.
That was the dominant culture. So hence you see the amalgamation. So therefore, if we want to, the people of that time must have thought that if we want to inculcate our message, how do we do it? What's the best medium? The best medium was with music. Wow. And so they said, okay, fine, well, this part of the music, I mean, the duff in Arabia even is acceptable. So they had the dholak. Yes. And they used to go town, city, and So that's how it
And is that still adopted today?
well, things have moved on, obviously, and metamorphosized. So you would say that even the recitation of majalis from the pulpit, the method of majalis recitation, etc., by the ulama, the message was delivered was different. Now, when the alim takes to the member, he has so much more knowledge and vast knowledge about the time and the place and all around the world. And so if somebody goes and recites in California, his subject matter and how he relates. I mean, the great exponent of this in English is Ammar Nakshani. And why people listen and can understand, and why the young in particular will understand more from him, is because he can relate.
Right.
That's what it's all about. And so, coming back to our poetry, etc., etc. So this has changed over the years, and so obviously the poetry of yesteryear was very different.
When I was preparing and doing my research, I was informed that, many of your students, and we'll get into students actually, and the fact that you have students in the first place, which is fascinating for me, because typically in the Iraqi sense, when they become professionals in their field, they usually just go on their own journey, and I don't know if they have schools and students, but that's the Iraqi. But anyway, when I was doing my research, I found out that many people call you Ustad. And it seems like anytime the term Ustad is used, immediately the person is humbled. Now, I don't know, again, I know from an Arabic perspective, Ustad is seen as a very honorable, respected position. But from within this context of recitations, what does it mean, and how does it have an effect on the students?
Well, the thing is that whilst humbling, if the Ustad can be said to anyone. For instance, if somebody works in a body shop, in a car, garage or something like that, the person who they learn the trade from is also an ustad.
Yeah.
But I rarely see anybody who will be humbled by when he's called ustad. He will just accept it as okay, that's just a matter of fact.
Yeah.
The thing with that term, when it comes to our religious recitation and in that context, it's you have to think. I mean, first of all, when we think, forgetting about recitation, we're humbled by the fact that that we were born in Muslim house, in a Shia house, and if you if you feel strongly about your faith and you feel that that's your good luck, and you're humbled by that. I mean, what good luck? Why was I born in this household and not born in somewhere else and walking in the jungles naked? And that would be my culture. And of course, we can go back to Rose Lust and all of that, but just keeping it simple. So that's where the humility automatically comes in.
Right.
Now, even if somebody only is acting humbly, that's a good thing, I will say. Because humility should be displayed. I mean, for anyone to be linked with the recitation of Imam Hussein Islam, and somebody to say, oh, look, that's a Zakir. So, irrespective, it's a great level. I mean, I'm just a, whatever my world field is, you go to Majlis and the eminence of Zakir is given, oh, please come and sit here, and so on and so forth. That is, if that is not humbling, what is going to be humbling?
Yeah, that's the honor of the izzah of service to the Ahlul Bayt.
And you are familiar with that yourself?
Yeah. So the term Ustad, where does that come from? How does it work?
Ustad is just a master.
Just master.
A teacher, master and teacher. It can be master, but it's actually more teacher.
Yeah.
Although the context in which, when it comes to recitation, it's not just teacher. It's like a master as well.
Okay.
Because of the nature of the ibadah, which is the element of this teaching,
right?
And that linked to aqabat, that's masterful. What more is? That's why we are so reverent towards our ulama, because of what we get from them. Even more so than a teacher who may be teaching you pathology or or anything in the medical field or in the engineering field or anything. Of course, they're masters of there, but
Right.
we're not as eminent towards them
Yeah.
as to an alim because of the religious connotation, because it's the ultimate.
Yeah, yeah. So what is then the responsibility of an ustad, especially when it comes to students?
Okay, first of all, well, let me just talk about myself. I mean, it is a humbling thing, and it's very kind of people to refer to me as ustad. Nowhere have I written down, and I'm not ustad. I don't regard myself as ustad. I suppose that if somebody has learned something from me, and of course I do maintain classes. There are classes, and they've been for years and years. For instance, the Yad classes, the Youth Azadari Drive, was established by colleagues of mine in Stanmore, Hujjat Center, and Abdul Virji, Raz, Rajab Ali, Muhammad Bandali, these three people who instigated this, and Abbas Jafar, I mustn't forget him.
Yep.
He was the the people who the inauguration is down to them, that they set up the system. They wanted the youth to be able to recite. So we teach over there. Every Thursday there were classes, and we have ladies' classes as well that are being run by the counterparts on the ladies' section. So we teach there. It's been going on for years and years, and mashallah, so many children and so many youth have come from that.
Okay, so I want to stick on this point because I'm very interested in the actual content of the learning.
Okay.
But before we do, dear brothers and sisters at home, it's been a fascinating discussion so far with Ustad Sohail, and we're going to go to a very, very small break. After that, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of what is delivered in a session with Ustad Sohail, as well as the importance of dhikr for the dhikr of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in a child's life. So don't go anywhere, inshallah. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Are you in court for raping English girls? You're here defending the paedophile. I'm here defending your dad. These women are here defending the paedophile. You're here defending.
We don't need a TV channel because we've got mosques.
We have Islamic centres that are always open.
We have schools teaching Islam.
Hijab is part of a school uniform.
Islam has come and it's established here in the West.
And everyone's happy.
They love us, our food, our fashion,
our culture.
The media is always on our side.
We've got plenty of English speakers, plenty of English books,
and plenty of places to go and learn in the English language.
Let's be real.
Let's get active. Be more involved.
www.imamhusseinfree.tv.
Welcome back, dear viewers. If you just joined us, you're watching Morning Baraka exclusively live on Imam Hussein TV 3 this blessed day of Friday. The blessed day of Friday, and I'm joined in the studio by Ustad Sohail Abbas Chauhan, who is humbly accepting the fact that he is a teacher when it comes to the recitation of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam from an Indo-Pak perspective, or the Urdu language, should we say. And I'm sure there's not just the Urdu language. We'll get onto other languages that he also possibly goes into. However, we talked about the history of recitations, the growth of society, basically Islamic society adopting different countries and how they would express themselves from an artistic perspective. Very, very fascinating discussion. We've now entered into classes and the youth and the importance of dhikr of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam when it comes to the youth and our young children. So, Ustad, thank you very much once again for being on the show. We were discussing your Yad, Y-A-D, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that's in Istanbul, and the classes.
Youth Azadari Drive.
Youth Azadari Drive, yes. I was going to say, could you give us a bit of an insight into the content that's actually delivered? I know it's a recitation classes, but what's the not all of the syllabus, but like one or two components of it?
Okay, so it falls into pretty much three elements. So first of all, you've got to give context and background. So the history of this format of recitation, because how should you recite? What do you adopt? What do you not adopt? What do you do? What do you not do? Etc. The do's and don'ts, etc. Or the rules and regulations. Before you do anything, you have to be told that. And so that's one element of it. So we do tell them a little about the history, that how this recitation, this particular format, the different formats of the poetry, etc., and the historical elements as well. I mean, we don't go into. Depends. Some people are interested. They're interested in. They'll come to you with, what about Mir Anis or Mirza Dabir or something like that, or Ghalib or so on and so forth, or more the recent poets, etc., like Josh Abadi and Rehan Azmi and so on and so forth. So sometimes you get these questions, and we do put those into context. A lot of the time we're talking about the musical element, which we call as bandish. There are two, in English we use the word tune.
Yeah.
And so a tune for a song, tune for a marsiya is the same.
Yeah.
But in Urdu, that respect element, so when we're referring to just general music, then we'll use the word tarz. Tarz is the tune.
Okay.
But we have another word called bandish, which has a slightly different connotation, very slightly.
Yeah.
And we tend to use that. Now, in the main, majority of people and professional people who are creating tunes, etc., and putting tune to verse, etc., they just refer to it as tarz.
Okay.
But we try to teach that more respect element. So myself, my terminology, my involvement is as an ustad. I see myself, if I am an ustad in any context, it's about trying to put context. I'm not a great reciter. I have a very, very plain voice. I have limitations. But maybe that's good, because for the average person that I'm trying to help, is that I can relate to him. That I find it difficult to do the very, glorified recitations, etc. But I have knowledge of it, so I can help them in that way by being able to relate to them, because I am not much better than they are.
I wanted to ask, because you've been in this field, am I right in saying, and I don't want to guess
Since the
your
age of 5, I've been
and I don't want to
reciting.
guess your age, so
No, I'm 62.
MashaAllah. So you've been in this field for...
Most people know me. I've grown up in this country, so everybody pretty much knows how old I am and so on and so forth. There's nothing to hide.
My point here is that you've seen the development
Yes.
of recitations over the last 50 years.
Yes.
Social media has had a massive impact on that,
Huge.
right? Really traditional, back in the day, should we say classical?
Yes.
No, I'm not talking 14 centuries ago. I'm talking like 50 years ago.
Well, I would say that,
now.
the classical ways, as perceived, that were the ways of sort of, I would say that in the Indo-Pak, just for a second, I need to give some perspective with dates. So the Mughal Empire is when Islam really flourished, because obviously, they brought the religion as well. And so that was the 1500s to about 1850, just and then when the British invaded,
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. So right up that time, that was, and towards the end of that, that was I would say, the pinnacle, the high point, the nirvana moment of recitation and the development of marsiya and prose in general, because you had these great names all at the same time, born around about 1800, passing away around about 1870, and it was Ghalib first, then Mir Anis, and then Mirza Dabir. Huge names. Huge names. And the latter two, especially for religious poetry, because they dedicated themselves for only religious poetry. Ghalib is obviously known more for his general poetry. But the latter two are the icons. And to have two at the same time, phenomenal. Do I dare give a football connotation? You got Ronaldo and you got Messi at the same time, So if there was only one of them, how many Baldos would they have won? But between the two, more than 5,000 recorded verses, more than 3,500 recorded verses, and Marsiya. So the Marsiya, also I will just take a moment about recitation. What are you going to recite? So there are different formats. So you have the Noha. Everybody knows that. We do matam to the Noha. There's a simple beat, etc. And it's either in a verse. It could be 2, 3, or 4 lines. But then when we are reciting, 2 formats of reciting again. How you recite is without tune, but it's called, in Urdu we call that Taitul Lafz. So it's a delivery of words. And you are delivering it without a tune, but there's a rhythm to that. It's not easy to recite how you deliver your poetry, because the meter has to be met equally.
Yep.
Now, with that, there's different types of constructs of verses, and you have 2 line, 4 lines generally, and then 6 line.
Yeah.
And so the latter is musaddas, and they have very different ways of being recited. They can be recited in tune, or they can be delivered in taht.
Right.
So we try to teach all of that.
Yeah.
But we need to have another 2-3 programs.
I know. That's the thing. I just came closer to you because I knew there's going to be more. But then the show.
I'm aware of your time.
The show is the show. Clear to see that when you mentioned things like the context and the history of it, that dhikr of the Ahlul Bayt is obviously very, very important. It's the main tenet of everything that you do. But I often come across different communities who would emphasize modern teachings, would emphasize school, would emphasize community engagement, would emphasize YouTube videos, social media, when it comes to upbringing of their children. And Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam is given at a later age, or Islam in general is given at a later age. You've seen from your own experience, what's the importance of dhikr of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in young children at a young age?
Is the most important thing. The most important thing. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for that. I received it, I can't remember what age. I mean, I was reciting at the age of 5. So it's like that, I'm sure, with yourself and almost all the reciters that I know, usually from a very early age. Particularly in the West, it's very important that children are introduced to the religion, number one. And then if it can be introduced through recitation, it's a good chance it'll stick with them for life. It's just something about that. Whether they are accomplished reciters or not. So many people you come about, and then they say that, oh, I learned to recite when I was very young, and they're not even reciters. And they don't have a great voice, but they do recite themselves, to themselves. So recitation and religious edict in particular has to be inculcated at a very, very young age. And there are so many reasons for that. Those, I think, better explained by other people, I'm sure, that you will be able to interview. I'll stick to my area of recitation. From a recitation perspective, taught at a young age means you develop your voice earlier and better. Then the different types of verses and the way of reciting will be adopted accordingly. So if any child has got a really strong voice, you'll teach him Noha. If a child doesn't have a good voice but has a love and he wants to recite, that love is the way to go forward. Doesn't mean to say you can't.
Oh, wow.
So these things all matter. So this choice. And then within that as well, when I have students, then I will try to, if they want to recite Noha, I don't ever say to them, no, your voice is not that strong, don't recite. No, do it. But let's choose the Nohas that are suited to your voice and to your ability scale. So that's generally more...
That's very, very interesting, because when we see young reciters, if they don't have a very strong voice, we automatically say, oh, he doesn't have it. And try and rearrange your priorities to serve the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in a different way, but maybe recitations is not your field.
Sure.
However, what you're saying contradicts that totally and says, no, actually, let's work with your voice. Let's see where your strong points are, where your weaknesses are. Let's focus on your weakness, and there is always something for you to do within recitations. Is that what you're saying?
That's absolutely the case. And I could quote many, but one always comes to my mind. Through the art class, there was a young man, I won't say his name. He's very active on social media, etc., etc. And he had such a desire and did not have the voice. But he has such a strong desire. So we worked with him. Although my thing was, because being slightly senior, shall we say, I used to take this sort of easier to teach kids who already had some effort. And there were many of my colleagues worked really hard, much more harder than myself, on children. Musa Muraj's one chap, and I forget Rahmatullah's name. Just forgot his name now. These two guys worked with the young age group, sort of your roughly 7, 8, 9-year-olds up to about 10, 12, 13 years old. They're difficult to work with, those kids, where you have to deal with discipline and all that. These guys did an amazing job to bring them in line and bring them up to a certain level where other people could then take over. So you develop all of them. You don't leave anybody behind. Then they can choose for themselves which format is best for them.
Have you seen a decrease in interest when it comes to recitation? Oh, you
it's
haven't.
Increasing, day in, day out. And with social media now, everybody wants to recite, just like everybody wants to be a presenter. In the days, when we started, when the TVs came about, on terrestrial TV, Alibet, etc., and Hidayat TV, they were the first ones, circa 2010, I think, something like that. But then COVID struck. And then everything, we're having sort of this format of online interviews and programs, etc., etc. And this has meant that there's so many more sofas like this all around the world in people's, converted garages, etc., studios, and everybody's got a microphone and a camera, and they're expressing their opinion. Whether that's a good thing, bad thing, I don't want to make a comment on that, but I know it's a great thing as far as recitation is concerned, because there's so many more people making their own videos, putting it live, and mashallah.
So you're okay with adopting modern forms of
You have to
media?
move on with the times. I would not do it. I've never, I mean, who would want to listen to me anyway?
No.
But many people, put out things they want to. This is the way of the world. It's fine. You've got to move forward.
So you don't mind these latest videos of I'm not going to mention names, but the famous Urdu reciters. You don't mind them?
I have expressed this on my programs many a times, and I don't hold back on it. It's about for instance, Hinduism people converted to Islam. If they brought with them any traditions, any cultural baggage with them, as long as it did not contradict the fiqh of Islam or of our Islamic traditions, then that's fine. Similarly, if modern the metamorphosis of recitation as is moving forward, if it's acceptable to the fiqh, it's fine. But certain things, the decorum has to be mentioned. I mean, some people do go over the top, in my view, particularly with hand gestures.
Okay.
Because, look, I'm quite simple. I'll take this. This may be something that people don't particularly like about this, but I understand that you want to, I'm using hand gestures here. However, ulama use hand gestures from the minbar. Completely get that. But there is a limit on what those hand gestures and the styles of recitations. And those videos, if there's not any humility in those, you have to remember, I don't know how long we've got, but very quickly, very important that I need to put this, that the main important thing that I try to inculcate in my students is, and this is also linked to who can recite and who, everybody should recite. Everybody's a reciter, because you're reciting for your imam. The fact that you're sitting in an audience of 10, 20, 100,000, 2,000, 10,000, 100,000 people is incidental. It means nothing. We go and work for our aqaba? No. This is for food and sustenance here in this world. We try to do some good, but we are working for our aqaba. That's it. And how we live our life, this is momentary. What we recite here in front of these people in this majalis, that's momentary. The ultimate aim and the ultimate delivery is for the Masumeen. So my imam is here. Bibi Pak, we say, comes to collect our tears. How are we going to, behave ourselves in front? I would not be able to lift my eyes. And yet we are here and we're doing this and this. Please, humbly I request that people, to our children, don't do this. Try to remember your imam is in front of you.
Ajay.
Try to remember your Bibi Pak is in front of you. We're sitting in the ayam. Just a little bit of decorum is important.
I would love to carry on the discussion. As you know, I've learned so much about your background, about the background of Burj recitation. So thank you very much for
You're most welcome.
your time, Ustad Suhail Abbas. Johan, and inshallah, we'd love to have you on the show in the future. Thank you very, very much. That was a fascinating discussion, and I really, really would love to carry that on another time, inshallah. However, we're going to continue with the program because after the break, we are going to give you news of the week. So inshallah, we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Have a duty towards the preservation and the propagation of the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Indeed, one of the best ways to work towards the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajul sharif is through promoting the values of Karbala. Imam Hussein Media Group is the only Shia television network that broadcasts globally in 5 different languages: Arabic, Farsi, Turkish, Urdu, and English. We are appealing to the lovers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam worldwide to support the channel such that it may continue its global operations. Imam Hussein Media Group is seeking 1,000 partners to pledge to a £14 contribution per month. This will allow the channel to sustain its operating costs as we continue to spread the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in multiple languages across the globe. You be a part of this great legacy and donate today. You can pledge in 2 ways. www.imamhussein3.tv/donate will take you direct to our donation page where you can pledge monthly. Or you can call or WhatsApp us on 0044 793 9917163. Imam Hussein TV, your gateway to Karbala.
Welcome back. We are now at news of the week. First off, an article written by Iraqi writer Mustafa al-Husseini entitled Unifying Humanity Through Arba'in, Embracing Diversity and Shared Values, addresses the role of the Blessed Arba'in pilgrimage in achieving human communication and unifying the different heavenly religions under one banner, whose slogan is the love of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, peace be upon him. In the article, the writer reviews the reasons and how the Holy Arba'in succeeded in attracting believers from diverse religious backgrounds around the world to the holy city of Karbala. In an exclusive interview with Shia Wave's agency, Mr. al-Husseini expressed his happiness over the international interaction towards his article, saying that it is a pleasure for him that the voice of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, travels through the world, creating such effective and influential communication on international media platforms. We go to Gaza now, and almost 1.9 million people, or over 80% of the population, have displaced across the Gaza Strip since October the 7th. The UN Agency for Palestine Refugees, or UNRWA, said on Monday earlier this week. As of December the 2nd, 111 staffers have been killed since the beginning of the war, it's added. The Israeli army resumed bombing the Gaza Strip early Friday last week after declaring an end to a week-long humanitarian pause. The death toll from the Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has surged to 15,899 since the start of the conflict on October the 7th. The health ministry in the besieged Palestinian enclave announced on Sunday. The number of wounded through the same period has risen to 41,316. And in a statement received by Shia Wave's agency, the organization said that it had learned from human rights sources that armed terrorist groups had committed a series of assassinations targeting a number of Shia scholars in the Herat province over the past 2 weeks, amid ongoing violations of the rights of Shia citizens by the Taliban authorities. SRW held the Taliban movement, which dominates power in Afghanistan, responsible for these terrorist crimes, demanding that it fulfill its role of protecting the Afghan people without any sectarian or racial discrimination. The organization also warned of the danger of the continuation of these serious violations against innocent people. It called on all local, regional and international parties to pressure to limit the deterioration of the human rights file in Afghanistan. And that brings to an end our show for today, Morning Baraka on Friday. Once again, our minds and our hearts and our attention turns towards the awaited Savior Imam Mahdi Ajjallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. We pray to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to hasten his reappearance. And we end the show, as always, by saying, Oh Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, please make the beginning of this day of mine righteousness, its middle prosperity and its end success. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
سيدة قريش الكبرى أم القاسم والزهراء بل زوجة طه الأوحى لم تقبل غير محمد. أحدثكم عن الطهر الجليلة هي امرأة وقد سادت قبيلة. أحدثكم عن الطهر الجليلة هي امرأة